Hello and welcome to this brand new episode of the Print Dashboard. What are cars without technology, without gizmos? Can you imagine driving the Ambassador way back in the 80s without the power steering? And then came the Maruti 800 that sort of gave the Indian buyer a lift up. Today, in 2022, you have vehicles which are capable of delivering the obvious and the not so obvious. And technology makes all the difference to the world of automobiles. To discuss that, we have in our studios once again the Prince auto expert Kushan Mitra. Welcome, Kushan.
Thank you, Anurag.
So, what's new happening in cars and technology?
Yeah, it's a loaded question. The biggest new thing in cars, obviously, is what is called as ADAS, which is Advanced Driver Assistance Systems. You see that on some cars from MG. You're seeing that on the new Honda City Hybrid. Of course, you see that in the luxury segment from Mercedes, BMW, and Audi. These are features like lane keeping assist. So the car has cameras that read the road markings and keeps the car in the center of a lane. In fact, if you start swerving to go outside the lane, the steering will shake and will try and keep you inside the middle of the lane. Then, of course, cruise control has been around for a while, but now you have radar-assisted cruise control. So you can imagine a car, the nose of a car now also has a radar, just like the nose of a plane, that can read ahead of it. And so the car ahead, so even if you set the car, say at 100 kilometers an hour cruise control on the highway, but the car ahead of you is braking or slowing down, your car will see that and brake and keep tabs with that car. So if that car is going at 80, your car is also going at 80 and keeping a requisite distance that you can select. You have many such features. Some people consider this level 2 autonomous driving. It's all very confusing about what is level 1, level 2, level 3. But yeah, these are now standard features. As I said, a Honda City has it now. You have it on MGs. You'll probably have it on upcoming cars from Hyundai and Maruti as well. So this is not the preserve of the 50 lakh plus luxury car, but also in the 15 to 20 lakh
It's basically democratizing now. I can draw I would say it's a poor example, but I think it's a marker. Like back in the 90s, power windows were very exclusive stuff.
It was very exclusive.
And today, I have a vehicle which is the entry-level model, but it still has power windows.
You have power windows on cars like the Alto.
So the democratization of technology, the larger penetration has happened. And is it just policy or it's the market that is?
It's the market that drives this. Of course, you have, it's always been said that what comes in the Mercedes S-Class, which is sort of considered the pinnacle of technology and stuff like this radar on a car first came in a Mercedes S-Class. Now you're getting that on smaller. My first experience with power windows was back in the 80s when a school friend's father came to pick me up we were going out that day, and his Mercedes had power windows. This is a very old Mercedes. And it felt like magic. But in the mid-90s, the first mass market car you could say that had power windows was the Daewoo Cielo, if you remember.
I do.
The Daewoo Cielo back in the day. It shows how old we are, Anurag.
Yeah. My uncle had it, and it had some fuel issues also. That's something that I remember.
Power windows suddenly became the it thing. And my father got an Esteem VXi, which had power windows. And I remember in 97, I was, in first year of my college, and some classmates, we all were in the car, and they were like, wow. Now even the Alto has power windows.
Right.
And can you imagine that? Something as, affordable as the Alto, which is a 2.5-3 lakh rupee car, has power windows. And in the rear seat of the Alto actually has a wind-up window. So I'm sure if you go to some Gen Z kids out there and take them to a car with wind-up windows, they'll be like, what the hell is this? What?
They wouldn't be able to recognize it.
It's like a rotary telephone to them, it's old-fashioned.
But then there are still a lot of buyers who keep comparing different variants of a model of a car's model, and then they say that this could have been included in that version, that could have been included in this version. Maybe the company would have added this bit. It would not have been a deal breaker for them. So is that something that you think, as I mentioned, that entry level models still have those roller windows at the back? Do you think that car manufacturers are trying to?
I think that, even more and more cars will have power windows and that again brings us to another major topic.
Because sometimes to me it feels like that's some sort of a penalty that's there. It's like because you're buying a lower variant, it's sort of symbolic of the fact that you.
No, I think power windows
You got to live with it.
Power windows, power steering, and even that small digital display in the instrument cluster is becoming increasingly standard because that's easier for the car makers to standardize. Where they are distinguishing between variants is the size of the screen you might have on your infotainment system,
right,
or maybe some other toys like electric seats or say automatic mirrors, or the interior adjusting mirrors. And this brings me to another point. This increasing amount of tech in cars is also a major reason that car deliveries are taking so long, because cars require more and more semiconductors.
Interesting.
As now you've heard from car makers say the semiconductor shortage has affected us. Maruti has said it quite openly that the semiconductor shortage has impacted us. In fact, in their last half-yearly results, Maruti Suzuki said they have an unfulfilled order backlog of 400,000 cars. That's huge.
Right.
That's almost 1/3 of their annual production. So, and that's primarily because of the semiconductor. And the reason you need semiconductors is because you've got these screens, you've got your reversing cameras. On some cars like the new Hyundai Creta and Seltos, you have these 360-degree cameras.
But then car makers are still bringing that squeeze in some places. As you mentioned in your latest column for the print, you talked about the Citroen's
C3
reverse camera.
That car doesn't come with a reversing camera as standard.
And if I'm not mistaken, the recently discontinued Volkswagen Polo, even its GT lineup did not have a reverse camera.
It doesn't have a reverse camera. Reverse cameras are not mandated. Reverse sensors are mandated nowadays in all cars. You have to have a reversing sensor, to prevent running over a small child playing behind you, anything like that. But reverse cameras. But it feels to me, as somebody who reviews cars and does this for a living, that reverse camera should be standard, because if an Alto has a feature,
right.
And as I keep on coming back to the Alto, because I think at 3 lakhs it is India's most affordable car. It is India's most affordable car. And if that has a certain feature in its top model, there is no business a car that costs more than that cannot have that feature.
Have the automakers been able to explain the whys and why nots?
It comes down to bean counting. It comes down to profitability. It's simple, right? I mean,
because in the larger scheme of things, I'm sure that car, I have not driven that one, but I'm sure it has features and it touches departments with drivability, steering control, which have better features.
For sure.
But in comparison to all of them, a back camera looks like a very basic feature. Then why give it a miss?
That is what surprises me. I mean, here's the Citroën C3 Turbo. Fantastic engine. It's got a 110 PS engine. It's great to drive. It doesn't have an automatic gearbox right now, but it's an amazing car to drive. It's got great ride, great handling, great performance. But, you can't get to enjoy performance when you're stuck, in traffic outside ITO in the evenings, right? I know when you're going home, there's this place right outside the Prince offices.
And after a point in time, even the collective behavior of drivers, it changes. The dependability. I've seen new drivers, when they get behind the wheels, they look for these basic stuff.
Yes.
They can't move without them.
No, I mean, so
a lot of buyers are entry level, and they the first time they are learning to drive, they have recently learned to drive. So, and this is something that I'm sure companies would be.
Absolutely. And I think even nowadays, in some states like in Delhi, you can actually get a license which says you learned on an automatic car.
Right.
So as you're saying, not just features like all of this, but features like an automatic. But coming back to this, as I wrote in that same column, a few years ago, I'd gone down to the driver training institute at Sarai Kale Khan, which is the regional transport office here in Delhi. And Maruti had set up this computer monitored camera, driving test.
Right.
And I had to reverse an old Wagoner, no sensors, no camera, nothing, down a S-turn. And I used to reverse, where I live in Delhi is a fairly crowded colony in the sense, like everywhere else, everybody has many cars nowadays, so it's become crowded. And I had to reverse because gates are closed. I should be pretty good at it, but I've become so used to reversing cameras and sensors that
Right.
as I said, I learned driving in the mid-90s.
Right.
I could reverse your head over behind your shoulder and the mirrors.
Right.
Younger drivers may not have even learned that.
Prashant, because we're talking technology and cars, how do you see? Do you think the gap between the introduction of technology in Western markets and the Indian subcontinent is that time gap? Is it really high?
Not anymore.
Or the fact that a lot of features like ADAS, you mentioned towards the beginning of the episode, that ADAS has come to India, but maybe not in its full-fledged form like in Western markets. So is that a problem? And if it's a problem, then why?
My personal opinion about ADAS, I think, is a bit ahead of its time for India right now. Our traffic, as you don't need me to tell you, is how chaotic traffic is, even in a city as well organized as Delhi. In other parts of the country, it's very chaotic. Wrong side driving is there. I think the only city in India where you can say traffic is a bit organized is Chandigarh.
Right.
ADAS will work in Chandigarh. But everywhere else, lane markings are not there, as I said.
Because those features have become the selling point for manufacturers. And if you make something your USP, if you characterize your product with such features, then you got to deliver it in probably the purest of forms.
No, not just that. You got to deliver it. But one of the features in ADAS you have is collision avoidance. And one of the features of collision avoidance is that the car is, again, got that radar in front of it, and it can sense if a cyclist or a pedestrian or a child or whatever comes in front of the car. And if you're not paying attention nowadays, again, technology has made us pay less attention.
Right.
The problem is with collision avoidance in India is sometimes a motorcyclist will cut in front of you in India and you're used to it.
Right.
And you know how to deal with it. But the car, and this has happened to me with a Volvo,
Okay.
the car itself brakes, and it brakes, when the automatic brake kicks in, it kicks in. And it's not easy, those features. So you have to reduce the sensitivity a bit for India. ADAS will come across.
Okay.
But I don't think India is going to adopt ADAS as quickly. But I guess as this technology gets cheaper to install and more semiconductors come in, you'll have ADAS in Marutis, you'll have it in Hyundais, you'll have it everywhere. And I won't be surprised if in 10 years' time, what Maruti Alto or whatever the equivalent of the Alto is in 10 years' time, which will probably be electric, will have ADAS as well.
And this is something that I was thinking about. Because there is a lot of stress now these days on these features and advanced technology. There are some players in the market who are making these things as the core of their product offering, or maybe the way they are advertising it. Do you think that advertising or promoting a certain set of features, technology, new technology, it sort of also puts on backseat the basics that a car is required to do, the drivability, the steering control, the other dynamics involved? And it sort of is that sort of campaign taking away the focus away from what's expected of a vehicle?
Firstly, Anurag, I feel that
because a lot of, I think, consumers are going for such stuff, maybe putting the drivability and other factors
No,
on
here's the thing. Honestly, if you look at, say, a 1.2 liter petrol hatchback, whether it's a Swift or whether it's a Grand i10 or whether it's an Altroz, at a level they're very, very similar. You don't genuinely get a bad car nowadays.
Right.
In terms of performance, in terms of drivability, whether it's engine or handling. I think on that front, most car makers, of course, service and build quality, and those are issues. And that's how manufacturers. So that's why technology has become this big differentiator today. Right. My car has more tech than yours. Because when you're stuck in traffic in a city or even on a highway, your highways are usually straight. I mean, drivability and performance usually comes in at the very top end of the power spectrum. Absolutely. Where I mean, handling, for example, the best handling cars are when you're on the hills and when you're driving the way I drive in the hills, but without any passengers. Therefore, technology has become this massive differentiator today.
So how would you suggest buyers to differentiate between what technology really matters and what's just a show? That's because that's also an art a buyer should have it. Because
but how do you tell people? For example, I'm giving a piece of technology which is very popular in India for a reason I don't personally understand, which is the sunroof. It's not even a piece of technology.
You have mentioned them.
I've written about it. I don't get the fascination people have with sunroofs. I have a young child. He loves seeing the sunroof, or even these panoramic sunroofs that cars like the new Grand Vitara have or the Creta have with these double pane sunroofs. They're fantastic.
Right.
But we live in a hot country. We live in a country where it will hit 50 degrees in Delhi NCR at times. I mean, just short of 50. Right. And with global warming, I'm sure it'll be 50. But why do we need a sunroof letting sunlight in? It makes air conditioning less efficient, burning more fuel. And I mean, how do you explain? But buyers want it.
Right. And what do you have to say about the AI controls, the so-called AI controls? How effective they are? The voice controls.
Buyers love it. I mean, honestly, I use Apple CarPlay, and most cars come with Apple CarPlay or Android Auto nowadays built in. So I hook up my iPhone to car. And I'm using Siri, which is Apple's voice assistant, all the time to make calls and even dictate messages. Usually, only to people who can understand a misspelling. But now you get on the message sent by Siri, so they know if pronunciation is off. But I think things like Apple CarPlay and Android Auto are becoming hygiene features now. Hygiene, you have to have them.
But a lot of manufacturers are linking those voice controls to other features in the vehicle.
Yeah, you can.
But their effectiveness, so to say, is not very proven, maybe in standard conditions. So how do buyers sift through this?
I'm currently driving the facelifted Hyundai Venue. And that has voice commands.
Because buttons are somehow just disappearing.
They are disappearing. I mean, Tesla made buttons disappear. But the funny part, I've got this new Hyundai Venue, the facelifted Hyundai Venue. And I can control the sunroof or the air conditioner with my voice. If going back to the car's voice commands, in fact, the car has some of these voice commands downloaded. It's fascinating. So I can say open sunroof and the car will open its sunroof. It's a gimmick. I don't think all buttons will disappear. While I love tech, I like having some tactile feeling. I think we're still some way away from having fully autonomous cars. Cars have come a long way. I mean, when you sit down in a modern car, whether I just recently drove the Mercedes-Benz EQS, it felt like I was sitting down in a spaceship. Not even a spaceship. I don't think any of the shows like Star Trek or Star Wars could even have said that I was, bathed in a screen the size of the dashboard and LED lights.
Because be it touch control or hover features, car makers are offering them as an alternative to the conventional physical buttons. But if your alternative isn't as good as the conventional buttons would be in a car, then that purpose gets defeated.
I think buttons are making their comeback. I think Tesla tried with buttons, Volvo tried with minimalism. In fact, if you look at a steering wheel today, there are lots of buttons on a steering wheel. Once upon a time, there was just, two horn switches. Now you look at a Mercedes steering wheel and you've got all sorts of controls over there. Buttons are making a comeback, but voice controls will continue to increase. And, anybody who's used a smartphone, anybody who's used OK Google or Siri or Alexa knows how voice commands have improved over the years. And you will be using, I think with the next generation of drivers, they'll use it much more. You and I, as I said, are older, so we'll take some more time. But tech is getting, but what is interesting, as we're coming back to the main, certain items of tech are now becoming essential. So your reversing camera, even I'm pretty sure in a few years' time, 360-degree cameras will become standard.
Okay.
And if you look at car makers, most cars being sold nowadays, almost 40% of cars are top variants with all the toys. So obviously consumers want all the toys. They want all the gadgets, all the gizmos.
You're saying increasingly they will become part of the standard fitment?
Oh, yeah. I think completely, even in entry-level vehicles like the Alto or like the Celerio or like the Grand i10, you'll have features that are, or the Tata Tiago, you'll have all these features that you might see in a Mercedes-Benz EQS or Audi A8L today. Will be there in these cars within the next 2 to 3 years. Semiconductors willing. If they can get the semiconductor supply chain up and running again, definitely.
But that also brings in question the costs involved, because not related to tech, but because of the regulatory burden, the new compliances in last couple of years, automakers have been saying that, have been complaining about the increasing cost of production, especially after pandemic. So where do these new tech and feature land when it comes to delivering it at a cost that is not?
And here's the thing. I will answer that very simply. A car, the Alto, again, I'm coming back because it is India's entry-level car.
Absolutely.
I bought an Alto in 2002, when my first job. It cost me about 2.4 lakhs on the road. An Alto today will cost you 3.5 lakhs, a top model. A 1 lakh rupee rise in 20 years. Way below the rate of inflation. Way below the rate of inflation. And as I said, the Alto today, the top-end model comes with a screen, it comes with built-in speakers, it comes with a reverse camera, it comes with a lot of toys. So, yes, prices will continue to rise, but I don't think car prices will rise at the same rate, because at the end of the day, prices of steel and rubber remain more or less stable over the years. And all these gadgets will become cheaper, just like how the amount of computing power you have in a phone today, 25, 30 years ago, you would have paid several lakhs of rupees for a computer with 1/10 that processing power.
Kushan, before we meet next, would you tell our viewers what are the features or technology that they should consider while buying a new car, say in a segment sub 15 lakh, and which are the ones according to you they can give a miss to?
I mean, ADAS, according to me, is still maybe a couple of more years before it becomes widespread in India. So I don't think you should buy a car based on ADAS today, because I think there's still more usage of ADAS that needs to happen. So let the people buying more expensive cars deal with that. But, things like reversing cameras, 360-degree cameras, which make parking easier, more helpful for you. These are features you should look at. And definitely having smartphone connectivity. I think, having Apple CarPlay, having Android Auto. I mean, every car buyer should, has a smartphone nowadays. So, having built-in, therefore, when you have Google Maps, built-in navigation, and maybe steering mounted controls and even voice commands. Why not? I mean, if you can get voice commands in a car that 5, 6, 7 lakhs. Great feature. I mean, a bit gimmicky, but when you're on the move, when you're distracted by traffic, why not?
Right.
So definitely cameras, definitely more sensors, tire pressure sensors. These are all becoming standard. And of course, electric cars, these will change again.
Well, I hope our listeners find this information useful. With that, we come to this episode of the Prince Dashboard. Hope you like it. Thank you. Thank you, Kushan.
Thank you, Anurag.